What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be playing the Chinese Tier 10 tank destroyer, the WZ-113G GFT. For anyone who doesn't know, this tank became comp meta all of a sudden and surprised a lot of people. It's very good as a replacement for a heavy tank or a holding tank. For me, this tank is everything that the E3 is not. It has good traverse speed, good forward speed, good enough armor in the front, and an amazing gun when you can actually hit the target. Unfortunately, I suffer from the same problems in this tank that I do in the WZ-121 from yesterday's video. Some shots just randomly miss, and I don't know why. The tank is still really good. I had multiple games over 5,000 damage, and I only played it one day today because this tank is just really good. There's no reason for me to spend 2 days trying to figure it out. You go to the front, you support your heavies, you go hold down, you would just win games. Don't let people get around you. It's as simple as that. If you're camping in this tank, you're completely wasting it. You have some of the best hold down armor at tier 10. If you can hide that one weak spot on the lower plate, nobody is penetrating. Obviously, if you're on flat ground, tank destroyers will go through it. Some high pen heat heavy tanks can go through if you're on flat ground. If you go up on a hill though, those heavy tanks will not pen you. Tank destroyers still might be able to, especially things like the Ho-Ri, but heavy tanks won't be able to, and that should be your main target. You can absolutely bully heavy tanks in this. As you can see, you also get the reactive armor consumable, which essentially, it reduces the damage that an enemy does when it hits you, right? So it essentially makes your hit points above, I think, 2,300-ish. So you get the same hit points as a tier 10 heavy for 30 or so seconds. So if you get into a one-on-one engagement, you're basically just as healthy as a tier 10 heavy with better armor and a face hug. In addition to that, if you're running rammer, you get over 3,000 DPM. If you're running calibrated shells, you get just over 2,800 DPM, but you also get really good penetration. Now, with this being sort of like an assault style tank destroyer, and pretty much any tank destroyer, you're going to want to run rammer over calibrated. There's no reason for you to need the extra penetration if you're just fighting heavy tanks. You can penetrate pretty much anything with standard anyway. I rarely actually use heat. You can't quite play this thing stupid. You can play it pretty dumb, but you can't play it stupid, because if you're on flat ground and you rush up to somebody, as you're going to see here, I'm going to take every shot of damage from this Type 71, but because I'm running reactive here, the first shot was an extreme low roll for him. Unfortunately for me, on his third shot or so, he max rolls, so it kind of negates the fact that he did just over 300 for those two. But I get a max roll as well, and we're pretty much even here on a tier 10 heavy tank that starts out with 2,700 HP. So even if you do end up doing something dumb like I just did, you get a huge, basically skill compensation for your stupid mistake by having that reactive armor that you could pop. This gun does tend to hit pretty hard. It has 640 alpha. Unfortunately, since I've been playing it, I haven't really gotten a lot of shots that do around 640. I'm not gonna play like a compilation of it or anything, but there's a lot of shots that do around 560, so it feels kind of like that, but that's just my personal experience. I had one shot do 480, which is like a minimum low roll and stuff. I don't really know if there's different values for that, but it doesn't seem like it consistently does around 640 for me, unfortunately. That being said, I can imagine Wargaming is going to nerf this tank in the next update or so, just because of how strong it is, even in the comp meta, and what they'll probably do is give it 560 alpha. I would bet on that. So let's go over a quick list of the strengths and weaknesses that the WZ-113 GFT has. So starting from the gun, you get good alpha, you get good penetration, and you get heat and good HE penetration. Moving on to the armor, you have very good upper superstructure armor, especially when you're hold down and it's angled upwards. For the mobility, I tend to average just over 40 kph in this tank, and the traverse speed is super good for a tank destroyer, so the mobility is great. I almost forgot to mention, you get reactive armor, which can significantly increase your effective HP for a short period of time. For the weaknesses, the gun dispersion is pretty bad for a tank destroyer. That's not so much of a problem though, because if you're camping and trying to snipe in this tank, you're doing it wrong. Another weakness is your actual roof armor is weak. So if you are angled slightly down on a slope, a lot of tanks can overmatch that, and mediums will easily penetrate it. So make sure you don't angle this down too much, because your roof armor is weak. Obviously you have a weak lower plate. It's a lot thicker than your roof is though, so if you do angle down, people are just going to aim at your roof and ignore your lower plate. Another weakness is your driver's right in the middle of that weak spot, the lower plate, and when you don't have a driver in this tank, your mobility is less than half of what it was with it. Your traverse speed is like 3 degrees a second. It's pretty awful. Alright, now that we have a rundown of kind of what's good about the tank, what's bad about the tank, and how we play it, let's watch some replays here, and I've got 2 games for you. The second one is really good, as always. The first one is pretty good too, but let's just see how this tank plays. Right off the bat, from this spawn, I'm always going to go hill on mines, because if I'm hold down in this thing, nothing can penetrate me. The 4005 might have a chance, but that shot is 100% worth it for the potential risk. And we already bullied down the Minotauro. That's the only other thing I would have to worry about, because the Minotauro is very difficult to penetrate hold down as well, but this thing pretty much trumps that when it has support. Basically, he just doesn't have enough DPM to hold me back, and I can keep hitting him for over 600 every 12.5 seconds. Now we've pushed back their main holding force that was on the hill here, so we're going to try to find another angle to see if we can clean these guys up, and then we're going to have to swing around to the cap circle side of the map so we can stop their other push. Right here, I'm going to try to blind fire the 4005. I see somebody else does it, so I didn't think he was there. I aim at where I'm probably going to hit him, and I don't know if you saw that. I actually ricocheted his upper plate, so I was pretty annoyed with that because, of course, blind shot, and I hit the one spot that I can't penetrate on that entire tank. Don't be afraid to take blind shots, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sit around and waste my time shooting at a bush when he could just be hiding now because he knows I'm blind shooting it. I'm going to come around and actively help out our WZ-113G here. I'm going to swing wide to this rock with these bushes next to it because this is a hard position for them to push, and it blocks off the space in front of the FV-4202 on the enemy team. He can't drive down that alley now because if he does, I'll be putting him in a crossfire. This kind of stops their advance and stops them from getting more map control. This was a pretty dumb play by me. I shouldn't have pushed up like that, and I didn't really get anything for it. I thought that I was getting some of those weird spotting glitches where you can't spot somebody's front half of their tank around a building or something, so I was just going to HE it and see if I could finish him, but he peeks out anyway and gets killed, so it doesn't really matter. I just took 800 damage for free. Now, because I'm at 1300, I'm worried about, first of all, the Minotauro pushing back up and being behind me, but the T-57, I'm worried about him rushing in and thinking he can kill me. Not necessarily worried about him actually killing me, but he'll make the rest of the game harder by suiciding and getting free shots into me. He ends up not shooting me, but I panic a little bit and waste my reactive armor here. I end up getting the kill on him, and he only hits me for 360, but that's definitely not a good use of the reactive armor. Fortunately, our team was able to deal with the Minotauro and kill him. That would have made this situation a whole lot more difficult to deal with. I think I still could have done it, it just would have been a lot more risky. Now we only have one more guy left to deal with. I'm assuming he's going to push up here, so I kind of angled out and then reversed around the rock, still angled. He fired Hesh at me. He was never going to penetrate that. An important thing to mention, though, is that Hesh and HE are not affected by the reactive armor. So if somebody's behind you or next to you in like a FV-4202 or FV-215B, you're not going to do anything by popping reactive. They're still going to do their 440 or 515 damage per shot to you that they would without the reactive. As long as you can keep everybody in front of you and stay hold down, you'll have a good time in this tank. So this game is going to be on Middleburg, and if you remember from my positioning video, I said that there's a couple things that affect positioning, and the number one thing about it is where your team is going. You can see I wanted to go hill here, and the 4005 also wanted to go hill initially, but we both see that the team isn't going to end up going that way, so we turn around and go to the town. The mistake that I see a lot of players making is complaining about their team going town and then going hill anyway and being up there with only one other player. You are either going to do nothing and not help the fight in town or run into the whole team on top of the hill and die. So it's better to go with your team, help them out, even if it's in what you think is a worse location. Just try to stay with them so you can actually have somebody to support you and people to support. So there's a bunch of heavy tanks in front of me that are in the open. I do a lot of damage per shot. I'm not afraid to peek out on the city street while they're still moving at this range because it's more likely than not that they're not going to hit my lower plate. So now I'm going to try to get a little bit of a flank here. I want to shoot the Concept 1B as he drives out around this little building. And if he chooses to fight me, I'll keep trading with him because I can go hold down on the other side of this building. But if he doesn't choose to fight me, I can't push to him because I'll be leaving my team's map control, and if their team decided to turn around and shoot me, no one would be able to help me and I would just die. So since he's controlling that engagement and he's not likely to peek me again, I'm going to drive in through mid here and face hug tanks that can't get away from me. And And like I said before, the upper hull armor in this tank makes it very good at face hugging and fighting heavies like that. So now we're in behind this IS-7, and he can either angle to me or angle to our 4005, so we have him in a pretty decent crossfire right here. I start to use my adrenaline, and I poke out to get another shot into this IS-7 here, and apparently the Concept 1B is shooting HE at my rear. So I don't know what's going on there, but thought I'd point it out. Now we're going to back out to try to cover our 4005 who's reloading. If we tried to chase that IS-7, not only would we be driving out backwards in front of the Concept and the Foch, he would also be able, the IS-7 would also be able to drive forward around the building away from us and get free damage into our reloading 4005. So I come around the other way. He makes it easy for me and pokes out anyway, but I wanted to help out my teammate and not drive into a crossfire. Unfortunately, I hit low on that Concept and missed out on a bit of damage, but he's going to end up crossing back here, which means I can move up, because if he sat at that corner of the building doing this crossing right here, he would probably hit me for a shot. I didn't want to take that risk, but now he's not threatening, so I can drive up, get closer, which makes it easier to hit him without aiming as long. Being as close as you can safely get while still creating crossfires and staying out of the enemy crossfires is a pretty important part to playing this tank. Even if you can get distance on an exposed enemy, in my experience, the gun accuracy is just not enough to hit their weak spots, even on tanks like an IS-7. Just hitting that lower plate at over 150 to 200 meters, it's just really hard. And as you can see here, my traverse speed without a driver is really, really bad. And if I still had a driver, I wouldn't have taken that shot, but it's the end of the game, so it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to get a hit in. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching the WZ-113G FT. Make sure when you play this tank, you play it aggressive, but you stay smart. As soon as you start doing stupid things and just driving in because you think you have an overpowered tank, that's when you die right away. My next video is going to be comparing the Tier 8 tank destroyers from Germany, and then after that I'm going to do a 50B comparison, an AMX 50B comparison. So if you guys are interested in any of those, make sure you keep watching for the next couple of days. And if there's a tank that you want me to play, feel free to ask in the comments. I appreciate you for watching to the end, and have a great day.